Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is DJ Valerie Belove. I have somebody here with me who is a pioneer in the Bitcoin and crypto space. She is an independent folk singer, and she is on a mission to help people understand why Bitcoin and crypto can help artists and musicians have a better life. She is an activist. She's somebody who is I'm so excited to have Tatiana Moroz here. So welcome. Like finally you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be joining you and all of our viewers to talk about my favorite subjects, music and Bitcoin. And I'm sure because, we have a love of peace in common, that will also be a feature.
Totally. Sorry. I think somebody was beeping me there.
Yeah,
Yes,
no,
I know.
people are beeping me. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I wasn't sure if it was my beeps. Um, okay, so Tatiana, you obviously have an extensive history. You've been in Bitcoin for, over a decade. And, you're obviously a traveling musician. You are a singer-songwriter. You've been around the block and you're also an activist. Can you help people understand, like, let's talk about your past and like, how did you get here?
Sure. So I grew up in New Jersey. My mom was from Warsaw. So I
Oh,
had a
cool.
lot of historical context for the world
Mhm.
pretty early on, in that, of course, Poland was destroyed during World War II and then had a long communist rule. So I think that that made me very naturally skeptical of the government. My father was also kind of, not exactly, yeah, government. He's like, it's all bullshit, Tanya. It's all bullshit. So
Yeah.
basically, I did have a little bit of a rebel spirit growing up. I listened to a lot of the music of the 60s and the 70s. All of those songwriters had a really
Yeah.
big impact on me, especially around Cat Stevens, because he was able to use music to convey a message,
Yep.
specifically around peace. And also, I mean, his music is just such a huge influence on me in general, because he's, like, his songs are so
Peace
deep.
train, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I spent a lot of my time growing up thinking about how to have a positive impact on the world, what I could do through music and through any other ways to basically bring out, a better outcome. And I cared a lot about people. I watched the usual kind of documentaries, the usual things where people are kind of getting off of the system. But when I finally learned about the Federal Reserve, I think that that was the appropriate like, that was the real window where I would say, I had my waking up moment. I realized, okay, this is how the scam works. And that led me down a path to learn about Austrian economics and to have I think, a more mature and well-rounded view of how to, like, how economies work and what policies sound good on the surface and how do they end up happening, right? Like right now you have a lot of crazy policies being suggested, and that
Oh
could
my
be a
God.
dangerous road. But anyway, so I got into supporting Ron Paul. I was singing around the country doing tour with Dr. Paul. It was amazing during 2012, and that was a really unique experience. And once I saw, though, how corrupted that political process was, I became
Yeah.
very disillusioned. To me, watching what happened at the Tampa Republican National Convention, seeing all those people walking out and not getting any coverage, basically the nomination being stolen from Dr. Paul, I figured,
Mm.
if they're going to break their own rules, why am I even playing in this game, right? And once again, another dream was shattered. So around that time, I was sponsored by BitPay, and Tony and Steven came up to New York and they sold me my first Bitcoins. So I bought my first Bitcoins at $11. No, I did not buy enough of them. I am a musician after all. I was
Oh
managing a
my
recording studio,
God.
which had like perks, but pay wasn't exactly on the top of the offer letter. Um, so yeah, basically I learned about Bitcoin and I didn't really understand it at first. And that gave me a very good clue later on, because once I did appreciate what the impact could be with Bitcoin, I realized that we needed somebody to help sell it to the normies, because I already knew that the Federal Reserve was my arch enemy. And
Yeah.
yet, I still couldn't get behind Bitcoin other than seeing my number go up, which I liked. So I started telling the recording studio kids around me, all about Bitcoin. Everybody thought I was crazy. I would like to take credit for the hip hop community knowing about Bitcoin, because I worked at a
Yay.
major hip hop recording studio. And so, like, Busta Rhymes and Trey Songz and all these people, they would come in and I would leave out Bitcoin magazines and why Bitcoins and just leave them out so I could, orange pill them. And the hip hop world was like really receptive to Bitcoin, right? And so in 2013, I made a Bitcoin jingle. In 2014, I took everything a step further by making TatianaCoin, which was the first artist coin in the world. And basically, the goal
Wow.
was to connect me deeply with my fans because I kept getting shadow banned because I'm a political loudmouth.
Yeah.
And like musicians, they're like, no, 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 you can complain about these things within these parameters, and
Yep.
otherwise, just be quiet, keep singing, sister.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I did not obey the commands, and so yeah, I kind of went down the rabbit hole. And then we created a company called Tokenly, which was one of the first Web3 companies. I only recently, when they started saying Web3, I was like, oh, I guess I'm in Web3 now. But like, we didn't call it Web3, we called it Bitcoin 2.0. It wasn't even blockchain back then.
Okay.
So we did a lot of experiments, starting with TatianaCoin, making 3 million of them on Counterparty, which is on Bitcoin. So a lot
Oh.
of these inscriptions that are like, oh, we're the first ones on Bitcoin. It's like, not really, homies. So um, it was quite a long journey. I'm happy to tell you whatever questions, but just kind of seeing that space evolve and seeing the Bitcoin space grow over the years and being able to kind of merge music with that, I think has been quite a journey, quite a lot of action along the way.
Yeah, I will, and I love how creative and entrepreneurial you are too, because I think obviously as an independent artist, we have to be like, unless we're lucky enough to have monster labels sponsoring us and doing all the business stuff for us. It's like we have to wear every hat,
Yeah.
as an independent creative in this world and in any of the fields, whether you're a musician, whether you're a physical artist, whatnot, a digital artist. Um, it's a lot to do. So I applaud you and your ability to handle all this. Let's talk about. You said so many great things there. I want to unpack a couple things. So let's go back to Cat Stevens for a minute.
Sure.
Because some of the obviously, I'm all about Bitcoin, peace, music, love, etc. And I became a DJ because of the consciousness transformation that can take place when you have a person listening to a song, or a group of people listening to a song, or a massive group of people. And so the ability, if you look at, obviously you're a fan of the Woodstock generation, as am I, and we think about, wow, the opportunity to create people to think in a new perspective, and have hope and have possibility and have new dreams for the future. Nothing has really affected the social fabric, I think, as much as music, and in that very quick thing. Like, you can be at a concert and all of a sudden you hear Get Up, Stand Up and Bob Marley singing it, or you got Imagine going on, or you've got Peace Train by Cat Stevens. You're just like, wow, we're here, we get it, yay. And so there's that unity and that kumbaya-ness. And the thing that I noticed about all of us as creators and change makers is we've got all these big visions and we've got these big dreams, but unfortunately we had been building everything on the toxic layer of fiat.
Hmm.
And so when Bitcoin came into the picture, it's like, wow, how can we build these big dreams, these big visions, these big social change movements, having music be an igniter, but still building it on this foundation of sound money. What's been your experience with, the activist community and the artist community? I know you said the hip hop folks got it, but like, are the change making musicians that you're, associating with, or do they get Bitcoin? Do they get why it's a revolutionary tool?
I think that musicians are very left leaning, and there's a very strong imprint of what it means to be a radical, revolutionary. And like I mentioned before, it's in a prescribed kind of zone. So when you're trying to talk with musicians about Bitcoin, on some level, I think that they get it, but they're naturally inclined to think that, oh, money is evil, capitalism is
Yep.
bad, business is bad, and
Yep.
all this stuff on their iPhones. Oh, the irony, you know.
Mhm.
So, so like they don't really fully necessarily get it, but I think that when they start imagining making money from it, it's appealing to them. But I don't think that they necessarily, in my experience, have really grasped the global impact. If anything, I think some artists are excited about like meme coins and stuff like that. I don't think that
Mhm.
they are as conscious of why money has such a big impact as to what's going on in the world. Like they don't think about inflation. They don't
Yeah.
think about money printer go burr.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the bigger battle. That's the bigger motivation has been to help people understand. Yes, sure. I want people to like my music and whatever, but I want people to understand how we have been made into the slave class that we are. And
Yep.
we're all under the illusion that we're all so free. And no, we're not, homies. Like, I don't know, I keep calling everybody homies, but like,
I like it. There you go.
it must be my old hip hop studio days. Sometimes it comes out.
Yeah.
But anyway, um, so yeah, like I guess, people really need a little bit more of an untethering. One of the benefits of COVID, what a benefit is that people have kind of detached from the matrix a little bit. They're stepping
Mhm.
a little bit further back. The problem is what is filling the void and how are they learning about that? So for me, I want artists to participate because I feel like we're the messengers. And if
Yes.
you listen to my Bitcoin jingle, look, I made a song recently, Never Give Up.
Yeah.
And before that, it was the Bitcoin jingle. And the whole thing is to really try and get people to think differently about what money is and what a world could look like if we weren't, chained to this like sinking ship, right? That we're all kind of supposed to be swimming and, keeping it up with our own work while some other guys are just, sitting around eating caviar.
Yeah.
So I think that the impetus is there to save the world, but I think that the efforts are a bit misguided. And then you've also got, the different gamut of music. You've also seen a fair amount, again, like I'm not a hip hop person, not that I don't like to dance hip hop or that I don't like all hip hop, but I feel like it's a missed opportunity for that community to put out a positive message. And so I get pissed when I'm like, listen, guys, we used to have some really good, we had Stevie Wonder, we had Prince, we had Michael Jackson, we had like all this great music in the Black community. And now the best we can come up with is like Ice Spice. I mean, come on, get it together. So, I find that kind of disheartening, but
Yeah.
um maybe because hip hop is by nature kind of rebellish, aside from
Mhm.
the people that are, being paid to promote stupid brands that nobody in the hood could even afford. I mean, they've already been screwed over by the system. So they're kind
Yeah.
of receptive to that. They're also like the hustlers, right? I mean, not for nothing, but like a lot of people in the hip hop world were paying for studio time with drugs. That's awesome. We support that. Great little side business you got there. But I
Yeah.
mean, because it's almost like how like a business person can appreciate the problem with controls on business in a different way than just a regular old employee can say like, oh, you're just a rich business owner, or you're a landowner and blah blah, but like they don't really know what it's like on the other side.
Yeah.
So I think that the hip hop community has really had an opportunity to go and like experience things in a much better way. So maybe that's why. But like, I of course think of the rock and the country and the pop people because I want to have the biggest influence that I can. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's a work in progress. But I think that the tides are shifting and people are feeling more empowered to talk about, what's on their mind. I just hope that they're not really serious about price controls and all this insanity, taxing unrealized gains. I mean, that
Oh my
whole
god.
now is
What? Yeah.
beyond pale. It's really terrifying, actually.
It's
I haven't
totally
been one of those
terrifying.
people that says, "Oh, I'm going to leave the country." If they start putting in price controls, look, I know my history. I'm out of here. See ya. I don't know where I'm going because that's the other problem. And I think that we're on a global level coming to a point where we kind of have to stay and fight. And nobody really wants to do that because we're all kind of fat and like we like fluoride and TV. So and look, even if I didn't like fluoride, I don't have fluoridated toothpaste. I at least, went past that step. But like who wants to go out and fight? Like, and even actually what I
Yeah.
find interesting is that in wars about 75%, 70, 80% of the people that are, given the task to kill somebody, they can't go through with it. So that's why they have to put all those military guys on drugs because they
Yeah.
couldn't actually pull the trigger because humanity isn't kind of inclined in that way.
No.
But, maybe we are going to have to fight. I hope not. It seems like an informational war seems a lot
Mhm.
easier to to have less bloodshed, but maybe it's more challenging because I think that we've been in a mental prison for a long time. And even history itself is sort of falling apart, right? Everybody's looking at old instances and old pieces of history that we had assumed were true, and they're looking at them differently now. So, I mean,
Yeah.
just like the JFK thing. I mean, we're still talking about the JFK assassination, that's pretty wild. And people have lost faith in the system. So it's a very weird time to be alive. Very exciting, but
It is. It's exciting, it's terrifying, it's beautiful. There was a
Mhm.
quote, I think it was I saw it the other day, and I don't wanna murder this person's name, Dostoevsky,
Dostoevsky.
and it said, "Beauty will save the world," or something
Mhm.
like that, and I believe that, like, and I think circling again back to our music, right? And it's one thing for us to go up there and put all the charts and the graphs and the this and the that and all the left brain stuff. If we can't activate people's emotions with positive lyrics, with positive messages, with the positive vibrations of certain frequencies of the music, right? Because obviously we know certain keys can make you feel bright and cheery, and certain keys can make you feel down and dark. And I want to stab somebody at the horror show at the theater. So it's very intentional how we can use music to elevate or bring ourselves down and create that sense of beauty, or perpetuate that sense of fear and that sense of slavery, right? And so I think it's important, I know for me when I DJ, I always want to have different types of music to take people on journeys, but I always want to have certain messages in the songs that are like programming us to believe and to get up and stand up and to never give up, and all your song. And so it's super important that we remember, like, it's a tool,
Yeah.
and music is a tool, for our own selves, and it's obviously a tool for scaling these experiences. And so I want to talk about let's talk about Ross, and let's talk about we'll talk about Ross in a minute, if you don't mind. We'll pause that for a sec. I want to talk about, what's the difference, because a lot of people who are new to the space, right? When I started learning about Bitcoin, 3.5 years ago, I went to a blockchain conference like 6 years
Mhm.
ago, and my girlfriend took me and she's like, Val, you can go make Valcoin and la la la. And I'm like, well, who the hell's going to buy Valcoin? And what, like, where are they going to sell it after? Where's the liquidity? Did I just rug pull these people? And so I lumped in Bitcoin with crypto, and it was all just one big gobbledygook, and I didn't even think about it twice. And so, fast forward to COVID, and I was like, well, I guess I got to make some money. Maybe I'll go check out this crypto stuff. And then, there was that Beeple sale, that NFT sale that was $69 million. And I'm like, wow, how can this stuff help artists? How can it help creatives? And so I started researching, and then I started learning the difference between Bitcoin and crypto and whatnot. And, listening to Alex Gladstein, I was really interested in the money part of Bitcoin, of like, how can people escape authoritarian regimes? How can they escape situations that are unsafe and have a chance to start over again? So I just put all the other crypto stuff on the side and just, said, okay, I've got this much little bandwidth in my tiny brain. I'm going to focus on Bitcoin. Can you help people understand? Because I saw like people getting rug pulled and these NFT minting things and the crypto, and this token's gone now. And so how can you help our listeners like differentiate, what's something that's safe and valid to kind of keep going toward, and what's something that's not, as an artist, so that they're not getting rug pulled, and that they're not rug pulling their audiences?
Well, that was something that I really considered a lot when I made TatianaCoin.
Hmm.
They had launched Ethereum, but it wasn't actually, there were no tokens or anything. It wasn't doing anything yet. But by then, people had introduced into the, public conversation the term pump and dump, which of course I never had heard of. And I had one of my friends paying me, a good friend of mine, not a jerk or anything, but he was asking me, hey, let's pump and dump Tatiana coin. And look, would I have preferred to have made more than, I don't know, what do we raise? Maybe like 30 grand or something like that. Like, sure, it would have been better to make more money than that. But no, absolutely not. And it was
Yeah.
really important for me to not do that, because then you're not really creating a fair framework. You're not behaving with honor.
Yeah.
And we are blessed with something that I think deserves reverence, and therefore an honorable treatment of it. I have no idea what in the world is going on with these tokens these days. Like, I just listened this morning to X about this guy on pump.fun, and they basically are just minting memes and then rug pulling one right after the other. And first of all, like part of me is wondering how I can also do that. Just like it seems like a pretty easy job. He's just making like a bunch of money every day. And there's a bunch of willing suckers, right? I can't even believe how many people want to join the shitcoin casino.
Yeah.
They're not there because somebody forced them to. They're
Oh.
there of their own volition. So I think it raises some interesting ethical questions. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, if you want to support an artist that I think that that's like a better thesis, right? So people like me, Tatiana Moroz, who has made many albums, who has made podcasts in the space, who's done like a bunch of stuff, like they have trust with me, right?
Yeah.
When I did my first TatianaCoin, I did print an album. It was fully funded with crypto. So now I have, a track record. And so when I go out and I try and sell Tatiana coins again, because I will be doing that because I want to fundraise for my next album,
Mhm.
um, I think that people will be able to tell that I'm legitimate. The problem is that not everybody wants that. They want trash. They want their shitcoin casino. So, give them what they want, right? I don't know, you know, on what basis people decide to make these purchases, but I imagine it's not because they were like, oh man, I'd really like to support an artist today. Some of them are choosing, more easy example would be like a visual artist or something. They want that artwork.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're just wanting to make money. And so that's cool. Although part of me is a little bit sad because I didn't do this and sacrifice so much in this community so we could just make a bunch of shitcoin casino things. I liked the fact that we were creating a money that would allow for peace. And I liked
Mhm.
that we were creating opportunities for artists to have sustainable careers and build communities without censorship.
Yeah.
So that's what's appealing to me. I think the like new NFT stuff seems really dumb. I don't think it's gonna make people like maybe I think it'll get at least part of those people to learn about Bitcoin, and then I'm okay with it. Not because I need them to buy Bitcoin, but because I need them to understand that the Fed is not their friend and that the financial system is a disaster. So to me, our best bet for solving that is within Bitcoin. Although to be fair, I've been a little disappointed with the performance. And now you've got a bunch of different people in the community that want their businesses to work. So the government is coming down on them and they're like, what principles? Boop. And so that's a little bit frustrating to kind of watch play out, but to each their own. We're all kind of guided by our own internal compass.
We are, and I think it's I don't know, Bitcoin's definitely changed me in the way that I think about, short and long-term incentives. How am I gonna make decisions, So, is this a quick buck? Is this something that really is, like, worth the 10-year wait or however long it's gonna be, that I'm making the sacrifice right now? And so, I think that's really important. This is a little side question, and we'll come back to Ross in a sec. Um, have you noticed, like, for me, I'm obviously, sparkly Val, DJ, la la la. Like, do you notice people treat you differently in the Bitcoin world because you're a musician and maybe not take you as seriously as they would if you were somebody who's got, the charts and the graphs and the book and the whole thing?
Yes, actually, I do think that. I don't think that that's always true. I think that there are a lot
Yeah.
of advantages to being one of the
Mhm.
more colorful characters. I think you
Yeah.
can develop very, very real relationships. But I remember one year I was at Satoshi Roundtable and I saw another OG who I had known for a while. And I don't remember what it was that I had lamented. I was like, "Oh, I don't know, I was like vaguely complaining, I think, about something because that would prompt him to say what he did. And he's like, "Well, what are you even doing here?" He's like, "You just like make podcasts." And I thought that it was a really rude thing because you need everybody in this community. You can't just
Yeah.
go discarding people because guess what? Like you and your four nerds in your basement, nobody cares about you guys, but people want to listen when I speak. And maybe not another engineer doesn't want to hear what I have to say. And I can
Totally.
appreciate that. Like that's fair. But you need to have that communication layer and you need to
Yeah.
bring it back to reality. So I do think that sometimes there's a little bit of snobbery there. On the other hand, I could make a better effort to learn things from the technological standpoint, right? But it's almost the same way then people are like, oh, well, why do you even have an engineer working on your albums? And you could just edit it and do the engineering yourself. I'm like, okay, first of all, because I don't have infinite time. Second of all, that person is talented at that.
Yes.
I am talented at the singing part. That's
Yeah.
how it works. Sure, I could spend some time and do a mediocre job and just have like a subpar project, or I could go to an expert who actually has cultivated that skill throughout their entire life, and that to me is kind of worthwhile. So, um, whatever. There's haters everywhere. It's the same thing like being a woman or something in Bitcoin. Sometimes it's a benefit. Sometimes you're showing up and some dude thinks it's a date and it's a real waste of time and it's very infuriating.
Yeah.
So, there's pluses and minuses to any character. You could be a super amazing developer, but nobody wants to talk to you because you're wearing a t-shirt and you look like exactly like everybody else. Whereas me and you, we're going to the front of the line, baby. So that's just kind of how it is. And you gotta try and have a little bit of a balanced approach at looking at the stuff. Otherwise, I mean, I've been bitter before, but I try not to do that. And people are a lot of times projecting their own nonsense when they're talking to you. But I was surprised when that guy said that. I was like, wow, like, what are you even doing here? Like, you have no value at all. I was like, thanks.
I know.
This is
And it's a
woman.
different your point is so well I mean, until we have hyper Bitcoinization, we don't have enough voices out there. And everybody's not going to hear the same message from the messenger if they look and smell and taste and all the stuff different from that audience. Like if you're totally an alien to them, they're just going to be like, yeah, I don't think so. So the more of us that can feel comfortable, like, okay, cool, you're a coach, you're a healer, you're a musician, you're an entrepreneur, you're an environmentalist, like get excited about like talking to those, communities too, So instead of thinking like you have to conform to some middle way of being a Bitcoiner, that's not going to work, And so, a hedge fund guy is not going to listen to you and I probably about
You
Bitcoin, maybe they'll be
No,
like,
but
oh, isn't
other
it
kinds
cute?
of influencers will. And
Yeah.
that's why I think it's so important. Like we are the voices. We
Yeah.
amplify what we're doing. And having famous musicians advocate for Bitcoin is pretty helpful. Not that I'm a famous musician, but I'm saying more broadly, like if we had more artists that understand it, that was why I went after TatianaCoin as a concept. Because I was like, if we can get the artists behind this, then they can, proliferate the information to the people. And there's a lot of trust that you have with an artist. You also have access to somebody on a very, very deep level that you've never met just because they connect with you on your music. So why not use that power for good? And I think that's a big opportunity.
I do too. And I think, community building and fan base building is so important and because we're at the mercy of these giant tech companies and their algorithms and you don't get to see who listened to your music on Spotify, right? Like you
Right.
just know,
And
okay,
then they
I got
pay you like a quarter of a penny or whatever.
it's
What a
obscene.
bill.
Yeah, and you don't get to audit anything, and you don't even know if those numbers are accurate. And so, the new ways for people to consume content and then share value with, their favorite artists, I think is very important. And so, we were talking earlier about value for value, and you're like, "Why are they calling it value for value? It's just giving somebody money for the thing that you give back." So, um, I think about podcasting 2.0 and Wave Lake and all of these other, ways that people can, zap some sats to people who, if it's a podcast or if it's a song, like you can't do that on Spotify. You
No.
can't do that on Apple Music. You can go and click a link and go to someone's website and then go to Venmo and then go to the Patreon account. But that kind of instant artist support is something I think that technologically this can, get utilized, so we can have some more like little streams of income. And so we were talking
I
about,
feel like
yeah, go
Go
ahead.
ahead,
Sorry.
sorry. No,
No.
no. I just feel like it's a little overstated, and I feel like that makes me really mad because look, I've seen the tip culture. I remember when tip
Yeah.
change tip was around, and
Yeah.
I've seen the tip culture really change. People do not give tips anymore. And the thing is that look, I put some songs out on Wave Lake. Maybe I need to go out there and be like, rah, rah, Wave Lake, or whatever it is. Who do I have to talk to? I don't know. But the point
Mhm.
is, I made like $2. Okay. It costs a lot more
Yeah.
money to make an album than, let's say on average, it cost me about $2,000 to produce a song because I'm using real musicians and stuff like that. Right.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think I'm still getting a good deal with that, like, because I'm doing mastering, engineering, blah, blah. But it's just, I'm not enthusiastic that people are so generous. I think that that has passed a lot. Like when people started first doing Indiegogo campaigns and all that stuff, people
Mhm,
were making bank. I mean, every other day there's a new GoFundMe these days. People are
mhm.
tapped out, and I think that we're at a different position. I think it's really obvious that the world is afraid that we're about to go into a deep, crazy, dark depression.
Yeah,
And hopefully that won't happen. But it's looking like there has to be some kind of a significant correction on the financial side. I
yeah.
can't get convinced that artists are going to survive off of, 10 cents, 5 cents. And, I had someone trying to convince me, he's like, but it's $10 that you never had before. I'm like, yeah, but it took me 3 hours to get signed up on this stupid site. So you guys pay me $3 an hour. Plus,
Well,
you know what I mean? Like, why is that helpful? Sure, I want to be a part of it because it's cool to be in the new thing, blah, blah. But I mean, I have stuff to do. So, when people talk to artists about joining the community, if you're going to waste somebody's effing, excuse my language, but like waste somebody's
it's
effing
okay. You're
time
okay.
making them sign up for some stupid website. I mean, how many times I sign up for something completely un-Bitcoin related for my music, right? You fill it in, you fill in this part, you fill in that part, you upload a picture and it doesn't work, and you have to turn it and it's not high resolution. Like all that crap takes time. And then at the end of the day, you get absolutely nothing from it. And there's just been nothing but a series of mediocre music projects over a decade or so that are just trying to kind of tap into the indie artist. And I applaud their efforts. It's really hard and really miserable. But if you're an artist, F all that noise, go out and buy some Bitcoin, get yourself a sugar daddy, a Splenda mama, whatever you want to get. And like, I don't know, like you're not gonna value for value. Like, sorry. Music, unfortunately, doesn't seem to have a lot of value these days. And I would like it to. I would like it to be something different. Sure, there's different ways that you can do it, but even if you look at the DIY model, I went to Berklee in Boston. It's a really, really good music school, right?
Yes,
And
it is.
what I found was that, you know, really great artists are not necessarily really great business people.
No,
And
they
really
suck.
are
That's
weird.
why we have record labels.
Yes, but the problem is the record labels are all evil and stuff and like,
I
making us like pass it up,
exactly,
right?
yes.
Which we also wants to do. But like, I can think of this girl, Chris Kanopka, man, she was fantastic. But she didn't like, she's not gonna make posts like, hey guys, what's up? Blah blah blah. Like, and that's what they want you to do. So now, okay, Patreon's a pretty good idea, but like you end up spending time connecting with your fans and sometimes it's a genuine thing, sometimes it's something that you're just doing out of obligation. And it's like, well, I would just like to have time to be a human and to make music and not have to become a part-time, video blogger and, oversharing everything and not being able to enjoy a moment without feeling like, gotta post to Instagram, hashtag, yeah. Like, give me an effing break. I want to think about things that are more substantive than that.
Yeah,
So I maybe like, I don't know where we're going to end up, right? Because we've got this whole Instagram culture that's fostering narcissism. And you've got
yes,
basically a bunch of kids that are like from divorce and mommy didn't love me and daddy's like a dick. And so, they're constantly looking for that source of
yeah.
approval. And I really want the shift to come back to something just of more substance. Because if I listened to music that came out 5, 10, 15 years ago and was a hit, and then I listened to stuff that came out in the 80s and the 70s and the 90s, I mean, that is some timeless stuff. And instead, we're just stuck with like WAP and other dumb stuff. So I don't know. Like it's also a bit of a march toward idiocracy. If you saw that film that
Oh
became
my god,
you
girl.
know?
It's like it's literally playing out in real time, and I know when people haven't seen that, if you guys have not seen this show, you must go watch Idiocracy. Like, we are actually watching it, and it's in
Yeah.
our world. It's how the hell did they predict everything? Like, it was just it's
Yes. It became a
incredible.
documentary. That's the running joke, right?
It
And
is.
so
I know.
that wasn't the goal, but like we're really kind of like leaning in that direction now.
Oh my
And
god, it's so scary.
yeah, I don't know. Well, I'm hopeful that humanity and will prevail and not just become idiotic, but
Yeah.
it does seem like low IQ is kind of taking over. So,
Well,
there's still some hope.
we're celebrating mediocrity, we're celebrating entitlement, we're celebrating, we're giving the microphone to people who literally should never
Don't
be
deserve it.
speaking in public. It's like, no, we shouldn't be tailoring our social structures and norms around a few people who have, you know, a couple privileged ideas about how entitled they are. And so I think it's it's very toxic what's happening right now. And I think it's very important for those of us who, are lucky enough, not that we're perfect or anything, but if we can kind of see behind the curtain, keep talking about it and sharing, the truth, and using our voices and using our platforms to get, common sense back into the equation of decision making out there. Um, Coming back really quick to like the GoFundMe and the geysers and the value for value and all of this, like I think so a couple years ago, before like the splits and Noster and everything was around, I'd had this idea, and I talk about it a lot, and it's still, who knows if we can build this, I don't know, but you're right, the tipping culture is tough. Like just this morning I'm opening up Signal and it's like, do you want to make a donation? And I'm like, well, not right this second, but I will later. And so my mind is just like, maybe later, maybe later. I don't want to think about tipping. I don't want to think about,
Also, it's enough. Like, how many more tips do I have to give out every single
what.
day? Now they want 40%. Like, no.
Yeah, totally. Well, but if we think about, if we can shift the perspective of like, we know right now that like we're the product, because we're getting all the advertising and all this, and they're making all the money off of us. And so we're so used to free content, we're so used to free information, that we don't intentionally value the people who are actually the content creators. Again, whether you're a blogger, a podcaster, a musician, digital artist, you name it. Because we're just so used to like, oh, I can listen to that for free and I don't need to support. However, your point is like, do we want a bunch of half-ass artists out there who are just throwing crap out there for us to have to sift through? Or do we want financial incentives for the artists that we actually think are good, so that they don't have to put on the McDonald's hat, and then not get to go produce the music or the art that they're born for, And so what are some ways that we can look at that? And so I thought, what if instead of having all these subscriptions and platforms and tips and da 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 and geyser funds, what if we could pull all the information from the places where we consume content, any of the forms, whether it's the video, the music, et cetera, and then have a tipping wallet. So let's say I have a budget every month and I'm like, I'm $10 a month. I want to just make sure that everything I consume gets a tip, and, Michael Saylor's got $1 million a month because he's a patron of the arts, whatever. And so we fund the central wallet every month and it just gets topped off. And then at the end of the month, the machines say, cool, you spent this many minutes listening to these songs and this, that, and that. And then each of those pieces of IP has their own wallet. And then it automatically splits to those pieces of content. And then whoever produced those pieces of content will have a sub split too. So if you're doing music production, you maybe have 5 or 10 people. If you're doing a movie, you've got 100 people. So that to me is a way for us to start reconnecting again with our audiences, and then realizing like, hey, they want us to be successful. They don't want to just, consume my content for free, but they're exhausted. So how can I make their exhaustion and the fatigue of tipping and being asked, how can I eliminate that for them? Like, how can the machines do the work for us in the background? So what do you think about that?
I think that you need enough volume for it to be effective. That's the
Yeah.
problem. Like, people will say, "Oh, look, we can get split your royalties." What royalties? What effing royalties, losers? Like, okay, I'll give you an example. Okay. I was on my song They'll Never Change from my first album. Ironically, it's a song about parents being just awful and like totally narcissistic and not paying attention. So they used it in Dance Moms, right? And yeah, and that girl, Sia, the little girl, Maddie Sigler, that Sia tapped to dance
Yes.
against,
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
copying me because little girl Sigler was dancing to my song on this thing, right? And so even today, I'm constantly getting, you get the Apple, like, who's Shazamming you and what they're Shazamming. It's a damn song every time. And it's like, this is like a freaking 15-year-old song. And do you know how much money I made from that licensing? I don't know.
$62.
Probably nobody even asked me. Nobody went to me and said, "Hey, Tatiana, this is like a great opportunity." Nothing. So I maybe made $200 off of that, if that. And
Wow.
so, like, I don't think that there's that many royalties to go around here if a song costs $2,000 to record, right? So, and maybe you can get them down a little bit if you're doing a full album at once. But the point is like the math isn't mathing, and unless
Mhm.
you have millions and millions of listeners, then you can start generating money, which is maybe why some of these more personalized relationships are cool. But then all of a
Yeah.
sudden you're like, I used this expression before, but like a splendid daddy, right? All of a sudden your fan is treating you like, because they have all this access to you, and now it's a little overbearing a little bit, right? So I don't know, you're asking them for stuff, and that's like the exchange of value in general, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to make a song and then people say, I like that song. Here's $1 or whatever it is. And frankly, I'd like them to give me more than $1 because a couple dollars is not going to cover my expenses. So I'm constantly trying to think of where will artists make money, because I personally do not think that people are loving tipping all day long. People are cheap. They are going to continue to be cheap. People are not going to
Mhm.
be able to afford food soon.
Yeah.
Like I want them to be, I want artists to not just depend on a couple kind people that are giving you, $10 a month to show their patronage. As much as
Yeah.
I appreciate that, and
No,
I
and of
need.
course, yeah, that's obviously again, it's one stream of revenue. If you think of
Mhm,
obviously touring is where most people will
mhm.
make the bulk of their money if you're an independent artist, and but
Well, time out, because
that's not sustainable. Like, you can't be on tour, 300 days a year if you're making,
well,
a small amount of money at every show. So it's just it's a difficult proposition for artists to keep moving forward if they don't have multiple streams of revenue, that they can count on. And so, but you have to take the consumer and the fans into place. And I think of, Kevin Kelly's 1,000 True Fans, right? It's like,
mhm,
who's your core fan? As long as you're not, like you said, feeling like, oh, they've got all this access to me. Now I've got to be in this weird relationship thing. So,
mhm.
you get to design that obviously as an artist and a creator, and how much space you keep between your people.
Yeah.
Um,
But I just wanted to add one thing, like
yeah,
that a lot of times people are like, "Oh, you can make money from merch and touring." Okay. Merch, fine. So I buy a bunch of t-shirts. Now they're taking up big space in my apartment. I
yeah,
spent like $8 on them. I'm selling them for $15. After all of that, what am I going to make? $500? Now I've just had some stupid ass shirts sitting in my apartment for, a year. How is that a business model exactly? And then
it's tough.
people talk about touring. I have my friend, my engineer friend, and he does a lot of gigs. He has a Grammy. He works with really talented artists. They're, indie artists, but they're going out on tour. And I'm like, wow,
Mhm.
how are you guys paying for this? And I'm like, are you guys making money? And every effing time, nobody's making any money. These artists are
Mm-mm.
coming out of pocket so they could get exposure that maybe one day,
Exposure, you're getting exposure, come on my
my
bill.
rent
No,
is
fuck off, I
bullying
need to get
exposure.
paid.
It's so annoying. I want my landlord to give me exposure payment deductions. I mean, great.
I know.
So I think a lot of times when people are, they see you and they're like, oh, wow, it's so cool. You're playing this show. You must be so cool. They don't know that I didn't get paid. They don't know
Yeah,
that I'm just like there, Sometimes, yeah, you get paid. Somebody takes you there. But a lot of times, God, how many shows did I do that are, for free, and I was supposed to get something out of it, and I'm just over it. We need a real model so we can not be waitresses, so we don't have to get stupid
yeah,
lame day jobs, so we can actually get health insurance and not avoid going to the doctor because we can't afford damn copay. It's
dude.
too much. It's not sustainable. And if people love their music, which they do, that model is going to have to keep evolving, and I don't think we're there yet. We've got a little bit to go.
Yeah, I think we've got a long bit to go, and again, you're dealing with, everybody can be a producer now on their telephone. If,
Hmm.
like you said, obviously, if you wanna use real musicians and real, engineers and whatnot, you've got to pay for that. But because we've got this, all of these apps, you can go, make your voice sound a certain way. We've got all the AI stuff that's even going to make it way more trippier. So it's like the volume of crap that's out there for us to sift through, as a consumer and as an artist to get our messages out there is growing exponentially because of the ease of production, and so it doesn't cost anything other than maybe $1 a month if you're downloading some weird app, right? Um, let's talk about the shirt you're wearing. Here, I'm going to take this off so we can see it. Uh, let's talk about Free Ross Day One. You want to talk about Ross?
Sure. So I've been involved with the Ulbricht family for a really long time. Like I said, I learned about Bitcoin in 2012. I remember in 2013 in October, going to a conference in Atlanta, hearing about, Ross Ulbricht was arrested and Silk Road this and that. And I was thinking, this is kind of dumb, not for nothing, but I mean, you make a drug website, what do you think was going to happen, right? So I was very ignorant to the reality of the community that had formed around the Silk Road, and also about a lot of the challenges in the drug war. Everybody knows thumbs down for the drug war, but once you really get um, under the hood, it's a real mess underneath there, and it's just a horror show. And so I met Lynn Ulbricht, Ross's mom, at an event, and I was doing podcasts for the Tatiana show, and I interviewed her, and her story was just so moving. It's a lot easier to find a connection point with a grieving mother versus, a kingpin from the news. They made him sound terrible. Of course, I knew a little bit better, right? Because I'm a rebel and I'm cool. So I knew that he was cool. And, through his mom, I got to go and visit him. And I was the first person in the Bitcoin community that was able to visit him.
Wow.
So, yeah. And I visited him probably a dozen times over the years. So quite a lot of different times we developed a close friendship, and, we would write letters and stuff. And it got to the point where when I put out my album that was funded with TatianaCoin, Keep the Faith, he had taken a photo of me made by a famous libertarian photographer, Judd Weiss, and he made a hand drawing of it. And he did it in his prison cell. And so I decided I'm going to make this my album cover. And why is that? Because it illustrates a couple of points. Number one, it brings attention to my friend Ross and his plight. And it also illustrates why artists need an artist coin. Because if I was signed to a major label, they're not going to, yeah, there it is. They're not necessarily going to allow me to use, Cuisinart by like a political dissident, right? I mean, I think of Ross as a political prisoner, right? And artists need to be able to stand up for what they think is important. That's our pushback role in the world. And
Yep.
for me, the Ross thing became a really big, passionate cause that I was involved in. Seeing how many prisoners there were, and seeing how Lynn could be a voice for them because she was relatable but also articulate. Not everybody who's in prison who got a bum rap has a mom as amazing as Lynn, but she's actually able to articulate and illustrate what is happening in that world, in a dirty world that most people don't ever want to know, right? We think, oh, jail guy's gross. But actually, there's a lot of people there that don't belong there. And what's really gross is the drug war itself, right? So got to know Ross. Ross is an incredibly really, really incredibly unique person, and somebody who has used his time in a commendable way since he was imprisoned. Maybe building the Silk Road was a misguided libertarian idea, but he's been in jail for a very, very long time. I mean, one might argue that the drug war is more immoral, and they even did studies showing that Silk Road made the drug industry safer because it kind of got it out of the streets, and the rating system prevented having tainted drugs that would cause overdoses and stuff. But regardless, no victim really came forward. And what's interesting is that when they sentenced Ross, the judge, Catherine Forrest, said that she did it to deter future people, and specifically citing his political views that she found so disturbing. Now you have Blake Benthal, who created Silk Road 2, who is just at the Nashville conference because he basically served barely any time, like less than a year, if that. I think, some people say that he only spent 14 days, but let's say it was a year awaiting trial. Basically, they took him in, he pled guilty, and they said, great, why don't you build us a tracking machine and then we'll let you out of here. So he goes in, he builds like some kind of a chain analysis for the government, just what the spirit is of this community, right? And now he made his own business. And the guy who arrested him, one of the arresting feds, who incidentally worked on the Ross case and did not offer this to Ross, they basically invested in this guy's company. Like, how can you investigate somebody, arrest them, be a fed, get them out of jail, force them to make you a free product, and then start investing in it. I mean, it's completely beyond the pale. So this case has been fraught with corruption. That's the least of what we have to worry about. And the time has come where Ross must be freed. It's been over 10 years. So many people around the world have been moved by this story. It is a blight on the American justice system, and it needs to be rectified. So seeing Trump saying free Ross was awesome. I of course wish he had done that the last time when he had the chance, but better late than never. So hopefully we can get to that point. And if Kamala wants to neutralize Trump, she should compete and she should free Ross sooner. So everybody's got a chance here. We could all free Ross. So, but Ross is only one of the many people that are suffering because of the drug war. We have a completely unbalanced justice system where violent criminals and pedos are going free, but oh no, not those drug dealers. Why? Because they're competing with the government. The biggest drug dealers in the world are the government, right? I mean, they love that stuff. That's how they fund their dirty black operations, is by having the illegal drug trade under their thumb. They're a bunch of, whatever. The people are waking up. And hopefully Ross will be free soon. I doubt he will be creating any kind of, trouble when he gets out. And that's good. Let's let him enjoy his life. He's paid the toll. He has, really made a lot of sacrifices for liberty. And while in prison, he has spent a lot of time helping to rehabilitate other prisoners, mentor them, educate them, guiding them through the GED, meditations, all different kinds of really cool stuff. So we should all be so, I don't know, I guess, like human as Ross. He's really tapped into a lot of good things, even though he's been dealt a pretty bad hand. And there's a song on the album called Silk Road. So if people want to listen to it, they can check it out.
All right. I'll put all the links and everything in the show notes for people to check this stuff out. I know it's such a, I can't imagine. I got to meet Lynn in Nashville recently, and, I was like, what can we do to help? And how can I help? And she was like, we have 10,000 t-shirts, and like the exact one that you're wearing. And I was like, all right, let's try to hand them out to everybody in line who's going to wait for Trump, and just every tiny little thing can hopefully matter. And you just never know what the tipping point is going to be for someone's consciousness to wake up to say, like, yeah, this is absolutely like wrong, And I mean, I equate it to like, okay, you're going to put Steve Jobs in jail because he made an iPhone and drug dealers use the iPhone. That's just stupid, And so terrorists use the iPhones. Bad guys use. It's stupid. And so to
Look,
sit,
where is Epstein's? Where are all his clients?
yeah, they're
This whole thing is nonsense. I really wish
yeah.
I never watched Ally McBeal. I always credit that to my ignorance as to the legal system, right? You're at home, you watch a little show, you think, yeah, that's justice. And you don't know anything about anything. That's why I found Bitcoin so interesting in the idea of smart contracts, because I kept getting screwed over. And, when I asked for my money, dudes are groping me and I'm saying, hey, that wasn't in the contract, bro. And actually, you know what you could do with your contract? You could light it on fire. It's effing worthless unless you have enough money to take somebody to court. And guess what?
Exactly.
If you win in court, you're not going to get your money anyway, because good luck collecting, sucker. So it's just a lot of like deconstruction of society right now, and these kinds of fake beliefs that we have structures that function when in reality we don't. But that leaves an opportunity for us to build better systems, assuming that we can get the people to wake up, which is a little annoying. They're like hitting snooze repeatedly, and I'm trying to wake them up. You're trying, so can't save them all, I guess.
No, we can't. And it's just one person at a time, I think, and obviously if we can get at scale, through music events and things like that. And that's kind of how I think about, like, the world is not coming to a Bitcoin conference, like what we had 20 some
Well,
thousand
Nashville
people.
was pretty cool.
No, Nashville was great. But like, if you think about even, I mean, and hell yeah, it was amazing. Right. But it's like 20 some thousand people out of, 7, 8 billion humans on earth. It's like, we have to be in other people's stages and their audiences and whatnot. And so everybody's not going to come to Bitcoin. We do have to have different ways that we feel like we can connect on other people's stages, whatever that might be, a podcast or a music stage or anything. And so I really feel like, I mean, I'm still new. I'm super like, I'm not an OG like you. And I'm like, okay, I'm not a cryptographer. Should I be doing this? Hell yes. Cause I know how to talk my language to my folks, and I should never stop. I saw, it's so funny because I was going to rename the podcast Proof of Love. And then I saw you guys did Proof of Love. And I was like, hell yeah. Tell us about Proof of Love really quick.
I haven't done Proof of Love in a while, and I really want to bring it back. Maybe you can join me because I want to do it as like a spaces.
Hell
Um,
yes. I will totally do it with you.
Well, that's great because I think it's a really necessary conversation. And when I look at the conversations around relationships online, I
Yeah.
want to vomit. It's really, really bad.
Yeah.
And it's become really vicious. I'm not so sure feminism was such a great deal for us, ladies.
No,
Sorry.
no.
I think
Well,
it
it's a
was a little
pendulum
better.
doing this bullshit. That's the whole
Right,
thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
And now we have people, lionizing Andrew Tate just because he says a couple cool, quotes about freedom, but in reality, he's an actual pimp, and he has, whatever. I'm not a fan of Andrew Tate, and I don't
Mm,
want men to think that, men need good role models. Men need strong role models. They do not
mhm.
need a-holes like Andrew Tate telling them how to be pimp daddies. I mean, give me a nothing break.
Yeah.
So, what I found was a lot of people in the crypto space and the tech space just work hard, play hard, no emotional development whatsoever, and
Mhm.
and also those conversations that were just so not technical, but just that kind of square kind of thought processes versus the other things that kind of fulfill them. I just felt like we were really lacking. You can be a great business, owner, but if you're ignoring your wife and kids or your husband and your dog or whatever, that's going to catch up with you. And then later
Mhm.
on, you're not going to be able to perform as well because you're going to have a divorce on your hands. You're going to be giving away half suckers.
Yeah.
So we don't want that to happen. And also, I mean, life is about living. And living the full spectrum of emotions. So for myself,
Exactly.
I made my album, the fourth album called Love Songs for Idiots. It was, kind of funny because I was not finding my true love, and that was kind of a journey, but and we're all kind of idiots along that way, right? And so
Yeah.
I was seeing barriers that I was putting up, and I was thinking, okay, well, if I want things to change, then I also need to change my standards, and I also need to change this about myself. I also can't allow for X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And exploring that with other people was really fulfilling. Then COVID happened, and also, I was single then, and sometimes it's hard to feel like you're not deficient for some way if you're single, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like it's a lonely world out there. So I think for a
Yep.
minute that became a little bit trickier for me, but I feel like I'm in a better place regarding that. And I also just I'm frustrated seeing all the miserable content, all these women, I don't need no man. It's like, I don't know if you ever owned a house, because if you do, you'll learn real quick you need a man. Unless you've got $200 for a handyman every time, sister. Unless you've got lots of time to watch YouTube videos, and I don't really care about fixing things.
Yeah.
So there has to be some kind of a balance where we appreciate the masculine, we appreciate the feminine. We don't go into some kind of toxic nonsense, which is what everybody has, like you
Yeah.
said, the pendulum has swung completely. It's not even on the hinges anymore, right? It's just flying
Oh,
through.
it
So,
is not on the hinges. It's woo.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, and it's we're gonna outbreed the status, right? Like we need to come back to that love again, and whether that's probably more importantly love of self. One of my favorite episodes that we did was with Chris Groshong. I think you may know him,
Mm,
out of San Diego, and he talked about alcoholism. And
mm.
you come back from a conference, you're like, oh man, you're like, I need to sober up. But aside from those jokes and having a temporary hangover, there's a lot of substance abuse issues that can come up, and just different ways that we're masking ourselves. And I really enjoy diving into that stuff because I don't know, it's like we have to be more well-rounded.
We do, and I love hearing this about you because I didn't really know the whole side about you. So this is super cool because I'm all about personal growth. I went through a giant, shit show 8 years ago. Went to rehab, almost died. And I was like,
Glad you're
"What?"
here.
Yeah, thank you. Me too. And so it's 8 years on labor. It's on the night of the burn, on Labor Day night, whatever, the Saturday night. But um, I was like, what the fuck just happened? Because I was like the super mom, I was a super volunteer, I was a PTO president, I was an entrepreneur, I was a super wife, I used to DJ. I had all these things that I thought like, how could something this horrible happen to me? Because I'm supposed to be together, And it was like bit by bit, all of these things I compromised on. And I said yes to my no's and no to my yeses. And because I thought I was being dutiful in all of these areas. And I was neglecting myself. I was neglecting my purpose. I was a whole bunch of stuff. And so, like you said, if like, you can be a great business person, but if you're neglecting these other parts of your life, the whole thing will collapse at some point if you have consistent repetitive neglect in certain areas. And so I just wanted to reverse engineer and understand like how could I have gotten to this point, So I did a whole bunch of, in-depth inventory and just thinking like how do all these parts fit together in my life and how do they touch each other and what are the common things that they have and what overlaps and what doesn't. And so I recognize like everything overlaps. Nothing doesn't touch, there's nothing isolated in our lives that's like, oh, this is how I work over here, but then my rest of my life is here. No, everything touches each other, holistically. Um, and then I started just kind of putting together this program to like rewrite your code, like I think of warrior code or Bushido code. And so it's like, what do we have a code of operating? Like, what are our operating system? Like your operating system is going to be different than mine, but we still operate in these same categories. So your set of values and beliefs are going to be a little different than mine, but we're still going to have the same principles that apply in these areas of our life. And so I think it's important as artists, as creatives, as activists to make sure that we don't fall through the cracks, and it's easy to, numb out because we're overwhelmed and it's like, okay, I'll just go have, some more wine tonight and nobody's going to
Right.
know, it's, the whole thing.
Well,
And
also
then
put
we,
on your own
yeah,
mask. You know what I mean?
exactly.
Like it's a really easy, it's not even necessarily a substance thing. I think that people can ignore their own problems by overly giving, overly
Oh,
volunteering, overly
people
investing
pleasing.
their
Yeah,
lives in activism,
yeah,
like yeah, activism's great, but like if you've got a messy backyard and you got skeletons under your bed and stuff, you might want to do some sweeping before you start
totally.
telling everybody else how to live their life. And a
Yeah.
great activist, Carrie Wedler, I would encourage you in the audience to check her out. She's
Okay.
the best, and she's the queen of this stuff, and she also kind of helped me realize that this is what was going on. So that's the way that things kind of happen, like after you've been in this space for a while. For example, I used to have a lot of friends that were libertarian and then they just quit, and I was like, but why? This is so important. We can't live without your voice. And then after a while I saw, well, because there's a bunch of hypocrites and these people are annoying. And after a while you start thinking, I need to refocus my energy back on me, because I have the
Yeah.
most control over what's going to happen when I'm self-focused versus trying to solve problems for other people. No good deed goes unpunished is a weird life lesson too.
Yeah.
Mind your own garden or whatever it is, and let other people make their mistakes sometimes.
Yeah, and it's so true, and I think it is sort of a like a change maker's dilemma or a healer's dilemma. It's like we've got our own trauma, our own stuff that needs to be, addressed and taken care of, but because it might be so overwhelming, we're like, it'll just be easier for me to go over here and kind of help you instead. And so we
Mhm.
deflect our own, or distract ourselves from our own things, you know, and at some point you got to pay the piper, like life will collapse on you if you don't uphold it, holistically in all of these areas. And so that's why we see burnout. That's why we see people quitting and dropping out of certain things. And so it's like, how do you learn to maintain a consistent, self practice so that you can go do whatever your mission is on earth, and your practice might be different every day than my practice, but making sure that, like you said, tending to our own garden is something super important, and not just, okay, I'm going to tuck that sucker under the rug and we'll deal with it next year, and eventually you've got a mountain and then you're like, oh shit, then you're in
Yeah.
rehab. Um,
Yeah, I'm trying my best. I think like I'm definitely a work in progress. I also think after COVID, it's hard to take anything seriously. There's a certain listlessness that I've kind of taken in, and I guess maybe some would call it depression. I don't even know. I feel like it's a normal reaction to watching basically the most insane thing happen of our lifetimes. And then everybody's just like, nothing happened. Why
Never
don't you
mind.
take your booster shot? I need a mask. I mean, what are you kidding me? Is this really where we're at? And and then you've got these people who did all these terrible crimes and they're just getting away with it, and we're just supposed to keep going and just being distracted by, oh, Kamala is drunk today. Like, okay, I'm glad that she's getting her drink on, but there's just, it's like there's like all these kind of like superficial distracting things that are happening, and then there's root issues that seem to be suppressed. So
Yeah.
I think that we have to honor what we've been through and give it the space that we need, because it's still an ongoing battle, right? I mean, they're
Well, what's
still
going to happen with monkeypox
terrorizing
now?
us
They're
every other day. Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of, I have this upcoming event called the Counter Party, October 18th to the 20th here in Miami. We'll love it
okay.
if you look it out. But
Okay.
the whole point of it is called the Counter Party because it's supposed to be anything to bring about a more peaceful world, but like not voting. I don't care about effing voting. I don't want to hear about how the president's going to save me or how the other president's going to make my life worse. Like, they're all garbage as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So we need to come up with other things. But as I'm planning for this event here in Miami, I'm afraid because I'm like, are they going to shut something down? This seems like a time that they're going to shut something down. But I can't just live in a weird paranoia
Planet.
is justified. Like, I feel like every day I cannot make plans and I cannot look at the future anymore. I love my apartment in Miami. And sometimes I'm like, I should leave because everybody's going to start fighting each other. And I only have certain bullets. I could shoot my way out of here. Like, I could start really going off. And I'm like, I got to go live on a farm and I need to learn how to kill a chicken. I don't want to learn how to kill a chicken. I don't want to kill anything. I don't want to kill, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to even like weed a garden. Okay. So,
Yeah.
and I don't want to have to go and live in the middle of nowhere and not be socialized. Like, I like civilization. So,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. And
None of us
so,
do, but this is the thing, I think it was yesterday there was a post and they showed a study, and this was done like 100 years ago or a long time ago, and they took 2 sheep and they put them each in cages or, pens, like they put the sheep in the pens. And then, and then they put like a wolf or something outside of it or coyote, whatever it was, but it was a predator.
mhm.
But they couldn't get in, so they did have a protection thing, but the sheep could see the predator. And so the chemical reaction, obviously we get stress hormones when we think there's a predator around us. Even though it's not actually doing something, it's just the thought or the sight of the predator and the unknown puts all of the stress chemicals inside of our body. And so our immune response goes down, our ability to be healthy goes down. And so they were showing that the sheep that were exposed to the visual experience of the wolf, they got sick and they died much, much sooner than the sheep that was just thinking like, cool, I'm just going to do sheep. And here I am. And so I think about what's going on for all of us, and you're saying like, I don't know about making plans and I'm this and I'm that. And so it's almost like these wolves are outside, and even there's the shadows, right? They're what is it? The allegory of the cave. Like that, we think that it's this predator, but is it really, or are they just wanting us to think that so that we get scared and we shrink, And so I feel
Well, I
like
do think we do have, unfortunately, some real wolves out there at this point.
there are. I'm not
But I
suggesting that
agree. It's like,
it's just, yeah.
how much bad news can you prepare for? I mean, I have a
Yeah.
bingo card that is, a mile long with all the different things. I got alien invasion.
Yep.
I got clones. I got, presidential, like civil wars. I've got all sorts of little options that could happen.
Yeah.
The mud flood, that's another popular one that I'm worried about. I mean,
Ooh.
so after a while, you just gotta, I think that this actually brings a person back to God because
Yes.
we're all gonna die.
Yeah.
And in a way, yeah, we gonna want to hang on as long as we can, but making a little bit of a peace with that aspect of the temperance of what we're doing as much as one can, right? I think could be useful. But
I, I
again,
love that.
every day there's a laundry list of what I have to do. So becoming an enlightened person and finding meaning, before I hit the dirt is sometimes it falls by the wayside with just
It
regular
does,
day.
but and that's kind of, I thinking, and I love that you mentioned this because it's something that we do get distracted from, and we're operating down here at these lower levels of frequencies, right? Instead of being up here with God and God consciousness, whatever your version of God is. And it's designed to separate us from God so that we can get manipulated and extracted from, in my opinion, And so I feel like the more that we can remember each day in all of these, whether you're sitting in a meditation practice or doing yoga or you're in a traffic light, like the more that we can keep redirecting our consciousness and our energy to love and to God and to like the possibility of the future, then I think energetically our systems can calm down a little bit and we're not going to be as sick and manipulatable as we are. And so I really believe, focusing on God first is probably the best medicine that we can all do as humanity. And again, whatever your version of God looks like. And so, yeah, I'll just leave it there. And
I think so. By the way, I'm going to throw this out to you. Maybe you
yeah,
can
yeah.
like just percolate on it, but I'm thinking
Okay.
about doing some kind of a decentralized church thing. Maybe it's like
Ooh,
Bible study or just some kind of a group of people that are interested in God. Maybe I'll partner up with some of those, thank God for Bitcoin friends of mine, because I know a lot of those people. But I
totally.
think that that's what we're lacking a little bit. I think the problem is that religion is annoying, but I mean, God
Yeah.
and a connection to something higher and giving like a profound meaning to life, I think is very relatable and important in the context of what we're being challenged with. And I found a fair amount of people in the Bitcoin space are really looking for that, are cultivating that if they aren't already in it. And so between the seekers and the found, I think that there are some other types of foundations that we can help take hold and give us like a leg to stand on going forward when things become, more unstable.
Well, maybe we can do just data experiences with proof of love and some spaces, maybe we could have like weekly hangout sessions. We could do kind of a book club sort of thing, or we're doing some challenges or whatever it might be, but we can make it a little structured so that there's like, this is what we're doing for this month. We're going to focus on this core value, or we're going to focus on this writing or whatever it might be, but just something that we can all kind of come together publicly, and everybody's invited and talk about this kind of stuff and figure out where, how can we ground that into our system on a daily basis too. So I'm down. I'd love to help you with that. So
Excellent. Well, that'll be good. And yeah, if folks want to pay attention, I have to update the website, but thecounterparty.com
okay,
is what it is, thecounterparty.com. And yeah, I'll start selling tickets and stuff soon. And then if the world closed down, well, I don't know. That'll be that. We'll
it's
see.
not gonna blow. We're gonna be good. I think I don't have my glasses. Give me a sec here. Where did it go? Counterparty.com.
Yeah, the
Yeah, that's it.
counterparty.
I love this counterparty. That's a really cool name for
But is
sure.
it the counterparty? Because counterparty is actually a protocol that I like. So I just want to make sure it's an event itself, the
Is
counterparty
it
event.
But is it thecounterparty.com or
Correct.
counterparty?
Yeah.
The
No,
o Alright,
thecounterparty.com. Yeah.
okay, sorry, I gotta edit that. That's what I
No,
like
that's
about these.
okay. Because yeah, I mean the guys at actual counterparty, the protocol, hopefully we'll be able to make it there. So
Cool. Okay,
yeah.
and so then so everybody can go there, they can go to your website, TatianaMoroz.com, and then also following you on Twitter. Is there other places you want people to check you out? Like, are you on
Oh, sure. Yeah,
Instagram?
they can go to Queen Tatiana. I'm on, like YouTube. I guess they can, whatever. I mean, people know where to look for people, right? I'm on everything.
Cool.
And if people want to kind of hear my backstory, I'll probably start selling some Tatiana coins sometime too soon, at least just as a dispenser for people who want to participate at TatianaMoroz.com.
Awesome. Well, congrats, and I hope this goes well, and, hit me like, tag me and stuff, and I'll repost anything you're doing, and, yeah, we'll talk about some proof of love things going forward. I'd like to,
That
celebrate
sounds
that.
good. We'll talk about it offline, and then the
Okay,
the viewers today they can join us too. Because I think that the nice thing about spaces is that like talking about relationships is definitely a group thing. So I think
it's
getting other people's opinions is going to really add a lot to it. So it'll be fun for sure.
I think so too. It'll be great. And, any final words for the audience with, life, love, Bitcoin?
Stay peaceful, guys. Try and stay positive. Be nice to people. Try not to be a jerk. I'm also sometimes a jerk and cranky and stuff. And like I'm trying my way. So just try and be gracious toward people and extend like some grace to them. I think that's really the thing because a lot of people are going nuts right now, and I try and be tolerant and loving toward even the annoying ones, and we've got a lot of them.
I know, I agree. I'm in the same boat, so I know I feel like more love and more kindness out there, and definitely more self-love and self-kindness too, because it's not easy out there for most of us. So, little kindness goes a long way. All right, well, thank you again, Tatiana, for tuning in
Thanks,
and sharing your
everybody. Peace
story.
out.
Yay!
Keep the hope
And
alive. Remember, bring peace back into Bitcoin.
yay!
So,
Love it.
uh, very
It's good.
cool. Thanks very much for having me on today.
You're welcome. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Peace, love, and warm aloha.